household hazardous day here in Concord, Lexington, 4 p.m.
Prescription drugs that can always be dropped off.
Police station. There is a receptacle.
Questions or comments? I will move to the chair's report. I want to update everyone regarding the status of the issue involving the nuisance dog Blue and the failure of the occupants of 15 Chase Road to comply with the condition of the select board order dated February 12th of 2000. In what seemed to be a reasonable resolution to a long existing neighborhood problem, it had still not been resolved. It became necessary for the town to file a civil complaint in the Concord District Court. The defendants have filed a response, and I had anticipated it was going to be necessary to hold a hearing in the court. However, at about 4:30 this afternoon, I received an email with some photographs showing that perhaps the fence has been completed. And so we're going to need to get somebody from the police department go do an inspection. If it passes, we will be dismissing the complaint, and hopefully the problem will resolve itself. There hasn't been any continuing problem regarding behavior of the dog, but part of the order was the fencing. The town always would like to have disputes settled by working out an agreement with an opposing party or parties. Such agreements are usually less expensive and each party accomplishes partial victory, but it's not always possible as any agreement requires both parties to compromise. At the special town meeting on October 1st was a warrant to accept an agreement with W.R. Grace involving funds for the taking of their property by eminent domain. The town earlier this year resolved a lawsuit involving the town of Acton regarding Nigog Pond. The town currently is involved in a lawsuit involving access to Estabrook Woods. Concord's fortunate to have excellent counsel in all these matters, but competent counsel comes at a cost. There will also be a warrant article regarding additional funding for the town's legal expenses. I urge town voters to become educated regarding the warrant article and to attend the special town meeting. I also urge you to spend some time to learn about the candidates running for elective office and to vote on September 4th. There are a number of contested races this year. We're fortunate to be able to select who will represent us in the various offices. And with that, we will move to the public hearing. I would accept the motion.
I move to open the public hearing, and this is to discuss change of the alternate manager paparazzi of Concord, located at 766 Elm Street.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Please come forward and you would identify yourself, but tell us a little bit about what your plans are.
Okay. My name is Eric Sheehan. I've worked at Paparazzi Concord since 2011. Originally from Gardner and grew up in Boxborough. Basically, we are in need of alternate manager at Paparazzi. I tend to stay there for quite a long time. Living in the town very well.
And I know that there's been a Corey check and a safe serve alcohol training certificate you've gone through. There's also corporate liquor service policy that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah, of course.
And the Concord police have completed a check and determined that there's nothing that would disqualify you from. Members have any questions? Or were you before you were from?
I started working there when I was still in college at McGill University. So when I graduated from college, I went into full-time serving and then worked my way up to manager. Before that, I worked at Camp Siwataro, Sudbury. That was while I was still in college.
And have you been working in the Concord location since 2011, or worked for the corporate?
Yeah, I worked at the Framingham and the Wellesley locations for like short periods of time, but I've been in Concord majority of the
Terrific, thank you. Any other questions? Does anybody in the public have any questions, comments? Seeing none,
Hello. I can move to close the public hearing.
all in favor? Aye.
So do we have any other discussion, or it seems like a nice track?
An experience, and,
Police checked him out.
we saw his passport and everything. No reason
Okay.
to delve any further?
I'm ready to make a. Move to approve, Eric, alternate. Hurry up.
The questions, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
We now have, the potential Main Park District.
The, I'm Mark Gibbons, 474 Barrisville Road, with me is Dave Glenn, who's the chairman of the. Basically, we are here to outline for you what our main work district. You know, it's been up for quite some time. We have done everything we can to preserve what. Although the demolition bylaw, very effective, is not a solution. We were also pleased with the reaction that we had at the meeting last year when we were able to bring. I'd like to tell you this evening is a presentation that our senior planner, Heather Gill, has done a terrific job on this. She really helped us last year put together the saving of the house on Sudbury Road, and you know, she really has a flair for this and a good education with it, so she's been terrific at it. Okay, so we have the presentation on file, and I'd kind of like to go through it if that's okay. Thanks. And what I want to start with, Andrew, if that's okay, is the back end of it, the last page, which shows us a map. And basically what we're looking to do is expand the Main Street Historic District, okay? To incorporate, we first started out, you already have a copy, you know. I didn't make copies for everybody because I think it's more effective to show it to you rather than let you get ahead of me, okay? You know, there's some structures on Sudbury Road that really need to be, you know, incorporated into the district, okay? And although, as I said earlier, the demolition delay bylaw can be effective, it isn't a solution, okay? And as we looked at it, we wanted to incorporate an area without being too aggressive about how we did it, because we thought if we could pick off the right spots, okay? And our intent is, as you'll see, is to sort of lay this out to the people who live in those homes and ask them what their opinion is, okay? And we've made no predisposition about how to go forward after that. If they come back and say, whoa, time out, we don't like this, then, you know, then all bets are off, okay? Maybe, and so.
Just for your information, we have been provided a copy of the letter, the list of the addresses that were identified, and the frequently asked questions, so that's been very helpful.
Okay, and that's pretty much what I was gonna show you this
Right,
evening.
but I just think for the public it's
Yep,
helpful.
that's okay, if Adrian can get our act
Yeah,
together here.
it's on the screen, just waiting for it to jump to the monitor.
So we can't do it? Well, I have the presentation, and you can certainly look at it from my perspective. So, you have a copy of the map, okay? And what it shows is how we intend to expand. Now, one of the things that the committee, actually Marshall Rasmussen,
Oh, there it was.
great, thanks, Amy. When we showed this to Marcia Rasmussen, she actually indicated that perhaps we should incorporate the Emerson umbrella building into it as well. And I haven't, we can certainly do that, that's town-owned, so, but we'd certainly like your input on it. And obviously, the key to this is that the map shows the different ages. A couple of those homes on Sudbury Road, as you know, are very old, okay? So what we're looking to do is expand the district from Main Street, which is the green up above, that's already made, incorporate those homes into it. So, Andrew, if you go to the page that shows all the homes, that's it. I don't know if you can read that, it's a little noisy, but what that does is that basically shows all the homes we're talking about, okay? And, the date of their structures, okay? And so what our intention is, okay, let's go to page 1 now. Is on, nope, page 1. Keep going. Don't have it.
Can I ask questions, page 1?
No, there's a page 1.
This one right here.
That comes out under Nia's signature that we expected to send out on September 10th with your approval, obviously, to all of those homeowners, outlining what our intention is, gives a little bit of a description about what our charges are and why we think it's, a good thing for them to participate in it, if you will, okay? So there's 2 pages to that, signed by Nia, okay, that sort of explains what we're trying to accomplish. And then along with that, there is sort of some frequently asked questions about the historic district, which sort of, reiterates what our charge is and all that stuff, okay, and then keep going. And then along with it, there is a survey we're going to send out that asks them questions about whether they like to participate in it or not, okay, and what their thoughts are, and trying to get some input in it, and whether they would be willing to, our next step would be to have an open forum probably at the library sometime in October, if we get good responses from it. If we don't get good responses from this, all bets are off. So, that makes sense. Now, she's also set up a website already that is key to this, so people can go to the website and see what we're doing, or answer these questions on the website as well. So it's our intention to send this out right after Labor Day. The letter is dated the 10th of September, as you probably saw. Hopefully get some responses back by the 29th, we've asked for responses back by the 29th of September. So we're holding right around that date. And then have some sort of a public meeting in October, get some input further. Okay, because as you know, if we're going to do this, we have to have the warrant article written and ready to go by like January 4th or something like that. Does that all make sense? So that's our plan. And we obviously didn't want to do anything without select board, sort of buying into it, if you will, and we welcome your comments. I'd like your comments about Emerson umbrella, if you think that should be incorporated. I haven't looked at the structure to date it and stuff, see if it should be. Okay. My concern with that is if we include that, then does that tell people that live across the street maybe that they are susceptible to being incorporated? One of the things that we have to be careful about is that we don't want people feel like we're forcing them to not be able to do what they want to do with their own home. We're firm believers in that. Okay? And that's concern. That's my story. Comments?
So I think I appreciate the approach you're taking here. I think it's good to get the input of the public. I'm a little unsure as to how many houses are affected by this. You know, how many are on the list?
I don't know. It's probably, I didn't count them, probably 25 or so, something like that, would be my guess.
So what you said was if folks aren't interested in it, it's kind of a non-starter.
I think we need to see what kind of input we get back from it. Okay, I don't want to go to that point and say, well, if we get 50%, then we'll go forward with it.
Well, that's
I think we need to see what the reaction is.
I think that's fine. I would just say it a little differently, because what you said was if we don't get positive input, something to that effect, it's a non-starter. I think
Right.
better language is we're going to hear from the neighbors after we've heard from the neighbors public, then we'll be making hopefully a good decision.
I'm not a politician.
No, I just don't want it to be
But
what
that is.
10 people
but
said
that's
was
right.
not a good idea.
You're
and so
right,
on.
Mike, that is our intent, okay, we wanna see what kind of a reaction we get, okay?
So just because we're being recorded and people may be listening to it, so
Right.
what, if I'm a homeowner in this area, what is the major impact a decision like this would have on my abilities outside of demolition?
The land bylaw.
Bylaw.
Well, you know what our charter is. Our charter is to, approve certificates of appropriateness for any changes that are visible from the public way. Okay? So basically, if somebody wants to put an addition on, or they wanna change the color of their homes and things like that, then they have to come before us. They file an application, there's a public hearing where they explain what they wanna do, the public gets a chance to comment on it, and move forward. I mean, we're fairly comfortable with our process.
So if the library was part of the historic district, would they be able to do their expansion?
The library is part of the historic district, and they have come before us to get approval for their expansion.
Okay. So there's some flexibility in terms of modernizing, if you will.
Oh, yeah, no, it isn't, there's no question about it, that it isn't our intent that everything has to look like a 1750 house, not it. You know,
And if I could, as an example, the museum, the new barn at the museum is a modern building. The science building, Concord Academy, is a very modern building. So just because it's in the historic district doesn't mean you can't have a modern building. Just, it needs to be reviewed and be tasteful and appropriate for the neighborhood.
And the streetscape's important.
Very important.
So I do recall, one of the often requested alterations to property is the installation of solar panels. And that's a very large neighborhood. I don't know, I know there are already solar panels on a number of the
Right.
homes that might now be incorporated in the district. Right. How does that influence?
It's a good point, Alice, because for the most part, we have not let people put solar panels on the front of homes, okay? Those streetscape. We've had one occasion where we have told a homeowner they couldn't do it. We've had others where we've allowed it to happen. On Monument Street, that you can see, but it is set way back, okay? Jack Clymer house, he put some on, okay, and they're sort of visible, but they're not in your face visible.
And certainly solar panels that are already on the home would be grandfathered. Anything that's already been done is,
I also think, Alice, that solar panels, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, are going to move forward in a little bit better fashion. I think, they're evolving. I don't think they're going to be quite as ugly as they've been in the past. I think, they're making great advances with that. We had one, where an architect wanted to put solar panels on barge, and they were actually gonna look like shingles. We had the folks from Concord Academy did a thing, I don't know if you saw it, about, historic district, environmentally friendly things. I'm not terming that right, but they put this whole presentation together, a class did, and they talked about how Tesla is developing these shingles, which will be solar panels, but will look like shingles.
They have them already.
They have them
Yeah,
that
so I think they're gonna make advances where they won't be someplace else. I'm
So,
sorry.
one of the questions I was gonna ask is, the houses that are indicated on the slide here, does that represent every structure in that area?
Yes, yes.
It's 51 listed.
Is that what he's picking? Yeah, I didn't count them yet. Well, you can see it's all of those. Okay.
And are there any, I doubt it, but are there any vacant, buildable lots in that?
Yes,
Yes.
there's one where there was a demolition
The
on the
Devons,
whole.
or
Devons
Devons
and
and Sudbury.
Sudbury Road.
And you can see it's the one that's got all the costs.
So this looks like they're, looking at your list, some 50 homes that would be expanded into the district. And altogether in the district, how, but the road district is now, the Hubbard Street,
Main Street.
Hubbard,
Yeah, Hubbard,
that the same district? The
No,
Hubbard Street
no,
Historic?
no,
No,
no.
different.
Different districts. There's Barrett's Mill Farm District, there's the Monument Street District, okay? There's the American Mile District, there's the Main Street District, okay?
I should know
There
this.
is the Church Street District, which has just got a couple of buildings over there, and then there is the Hubbardsville.
But this would be in addition to the Main Street.
To the Main
But
Street.
it would be in addition, we're not gonna establish a new district. I'm told that it's easier for us, the law is such that it's easier for us to expand a district than it is to establish a new. Let's move on. Any other thoughts other than our verbiage?
I know we did get a letter, and I see she's here, so I'm sure that the public will have a comment on this. My only comment, I bet so many people didn't realize they were living in somebody else's home. The names of everybody. I thought it was interesting.
Well, I think even if you were not favored with saying, I think it would be a wise thing to do to go forward with the plan particularly. Have the input from the folks in the neighborhood and have the public have a chance to weigh in. So if you're asking our view about that, I think
It's a good process.
certainly
Good.
support that. And see what kind of information we get back. I also like it in the sense of, not what I've seen before, and I'm not gonna be able to give you good information, but sort of defining a house all of a sudden as part of the historic district. And we've seen that a couple of times over the last
Right.
few years. That's a little
I agree.
tricky for me.
I
I'd
agree.
much rather have some understanding of what constitutes a historic district, get it well defined, and, take it to the public and find out if they're interested. I don't know, what's the process for having municipal building included?
I think they asked the select board if you're willing to have it included, which you did with the Harvey Wheeler Community Center, so the Church Street lot. The library trustees did not want the West Concord Branch Library included, and it's not, I think. So, and that was gonna be my question. The practice, I think, has been to require the property owners to volunteer to be included. Is that, am I correct?
Well, when it was done in '62, before I was involved in it, when it was first started, that's really was the definition of it, okay? And only those people that said, I agree to be in it, were put into it. And I don't know if it was done because they didn't want to fight, they wanted to go through. I suspect that's more than anything, yeah. Like the Gray House over in Hubbardsville, that was not included at that point in time because the owners didn't want to be part of it, okay? So, but I hate the idea of, as we talked about picking lots and saying, okay, 69 Sudbury Road's in, but 73 isn't, or something like that. So let's wait and see what happens, I guess, more than anything else.
So what do you need in terms of the number of new homes being proposed for the district? Do you need some number of them to approve for the district to be expanded, or do you?
No, what we need is for the, at town meeting, for the voting public to say by 2/3 majority that they want to incorporate this in the historic district.
I thought there was some decision, I'm recalling just a recent meeting in Gloucester when there's a new historic district being proposed. And it requires 51% of the owners of the property to choose to be in the district for the district to be, this is to create, not to expand the district.
Right.
So there's no requirement like that in.
Not that I'm aware of, but I guess we'll find out pretty quickly as the process goes along. Okay, so, all right. But obviously, if we have the majority of the homeowners favor this, it will certainly make it more compelling at town meeting in April when we bring it before the town to vote. Makes sense? And that's really up to us to articulate our position such that the homeowners see some value in it.
I thought both the letter and the frequently asked questions are excellent, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
yes, that's Heather's job.
And we certainly don't need to decide about Emerson now, right? And would it change the condition of the lease on Emerson Umbrella? Would it put another, or something
You probably want to ask the opinion of the lessee, who are the folks that you require under the lease, them to make any necessary repairs and that sort of thing. And they would probably have an opinion on
But they'd be interior, wouldn't they, which is not part of our purview?
Emerson Umbrella leases the building from the town for $1, and they're expected to make all capital improvements. So exterior, interior, it's all on them.
And they're in the process of an expansion now.
I think the process you laid out is a good
Yeah.
one, to solicit feedback and input. I think having the Survey Monkey is a good tool to use.
Thank you.
Makes it easy to get input. How well attended was your session, was it last week at the HTC? Did you have a public session on your proposal?
That was just a discussion,
Oh,
so
just a
it was
discussion.
not,
We will
Okay.
vote on it at our meeting on next Thursday.
Oh, okay.
The commission at that point will endorse it, and it will be official, and then after that is when we start to send it.
Okay.
See, I know there is somebody who wants to make a comment, so
Yeah.
thank you very much.
You want to read that letter?
I think with that, the person who
If
wrote it.
she's here, I think we
You
can
bet.
just hear.
Thank
directly.
you.
If she
Yeah, you
can
come
come up, and if you all can, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You can sit here. I don't need to
Yeah,
sit.
you don't
Yep.
mind?
No,
Thank you.
be my
Hi,
guest.
thank you. Yeah, Tanya Davis, 62 Prescott Road. I came because I had one general concept to add, which is, this is not only an issue that concerns the owners of these properties. Therefore, I would like you to consider even in the initial process, not to limit questionnaires and consultations to the owners of the properties alone. I can imagine that some of them would like the idea and others wouldn't for the various reasons already discussed. But when we declare a certain neighborhood historic district, that affects the rest of Concord in terms of where certain projects and proposals end up happening, like in the recent long-range plan. This isn't my letter, but you know what it means. And there are some encouragement for multi-family or multi-development projects for town center, as well as nearby areas. If we push it into nearby areas where we have natural resources and actually our own historical, such as World War II veterans housing. Or recently there was discussion about cell phone towers or even parking meters. So there, a lot of the issues that protect the historic districts end up affecting the rest of the town. So on the other hand, of course, having a nice historic district helps all of the town. So I was just going to ask you to please involve all of the public, not only the property owners, in the discussions.
All the public would be involved at town
Has
meeting.
to go to town
Yes.
meeting.
I understand, but as the gentleman noted, once the property owners, 51% or whatever, say yes, there's extra pressure to push it through. And it would be good to have people like me have a chance to speak up. Not everyone is necessarily following in the summer, the agenda or whatever. I think there should be an article in the Concord Journal. I think there should be, a widely publicized public discussions about what's in the initial stages before it goes to town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what we're hearing in that comment is that whatever decisions are made in one place has a ripple effect elsewhere in the community.
Thank you.
And I think that's what I think Tanya is speaking to.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Jean, would you like to come forward?
Hi, Jean Goldsberry, 1832 Main Street. I just have I think a simple question. Is this an all or nothing kind of thing? So if you had people who live on Belknap Street and Middle Street and Academy Lane say, oh, we're wildly in favor of this, and the people on Sudbury Road were sort of like, no, only one or two wanted it, would you recarve this?
I don't think we
Just a question.
I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, Pete. Okay, we're waiting
But
to
you
see.
could,
We could.
you could
absolutely.
redefine
Yeah.
when you go to town
Right.
meeting.
But it depends upon what, we have to get 2/3 majority of town meeting for anything that we do, so.
Anybody else like to make a comment? Question?
Good process.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing it to our attention and bringing it early so that public can be aware of what potentially is in the process. Thank you. We are now the public-private partnership discussion. And we have been provided in our documents the proposal that was voted on, adopted on July 10th of 2017. We also have the report of the public-private P3 committee. And I think we're really, I guess, at the stage of trying to decide certain things need to be accomplished by the town manager in terms of listing and notifying. And so that I think is in the process of getting done. And then the other, as far as we know, there are no, as of this year, no new P3s that meet the criteria.
Not that I'm aware of.
Anybody else aware of any that,
So none of the land purchase that would not be considered P3.
Not a partnership, I don't think. One was a purchase, one is hopefully a gift, but neither one constitutes a partnership.
So one of these is, it goes a little beyond, making sure the list is there, is creating a website.
Yeah,
Having a
yes.
public presence that
Yeah.
people can go and look at and be able to track, what's
What's on.
new, what's
Yeah.
old, have we kept up with the ones that we currently have? So that's a little bit more involved, I know. Is that something that Aaron does? Who does website?
Aaron is the website manager, yes. So, and different staff members, so Public Works, Anna Trout at Public Works is able to update their page. The police have people that are able to update their page, but she's sort of the manager. Aaron's the manager.
but as far as ongoing P3s, Aaron would be the
Yes.
contact person in essence, so.
For the website or for tracking the progress on any P3?
Just for posting whatever
Posting.
needs to go.
If you're just
If
doing
you
the
don't have a
web.
designated staff member, it would be Aaron.
Okay.
And what would be your proposal in terms of, sort of how that would work and the timing of getting?
So, as you know, there's two things that I haven't made much progress on. One is the 2229 Main Street grant offer from the EPA to follow up on that, and this P3. It's been a busy summer. I don't have any excuse other than everything else that's going on. So, I guess my proposal would be, I would think that within 4 to 6 weeks, I'd be able to come into compliance. But it's been a challenge to find time.
That was good.
Um,
Special town meeting,
Yeah.
we have a lot of things going on. I know you've been putting together the town manager's job description. There's a lot.
So I offer no excuse. It's not something that I consider unimportant. Same with 2229 Main Street.
Yeah.
That committee's a bit frustrated with me as well. Those are the two things I can mention that I really haven't made any progress in the last few months and expected to do so over a quiet summer. What was supposed to happen.
So I'm wondering whether, we had talked briefly, we brought it up at 2 different meetings, whether we could help you if the P3 committee were reconstituted to do some of the legwork. Do you feel like the work that's in here is something that a committee could help you achieve if the committee members are willing, which I think we heard they might be? Helping with the design of a website or offering recommendations for what goes on the website. Maybe drafting, maybe it was already in the front report, what an MOU might include, because we have the guidelines of what should go into the MOU of any new MOU. Is that something we should even consider?
So, yeah, I think if the committee wants to offer, you know, information like that, or identify things that are of particular concern, because some private partnerships are quiet and inert, and then they come alive from time to time, such as the Rotary Club, where they make a donation and they're involved in a specific project, and then they go away for a period of time. So if the committee has particular things they want to be sure the public has access to, I'd welcome their input and support in that. Otherwise, I would just, you know, go through the things that I think are important based on the comments I've heard from the public, that sort of thing.
It seems to me that the one that is sort of likely to be active is the library.
Yes.
And there's quite a few different aspects to that in terms of archives and other aspects. And I guess the question then is, a reconstituted committee the best way to go, or should we wait until there's kind of a point when we need to sort of get people who have a particular expertise in library management and library construction? And we do have the issue as well of the proposal of the building committee that I think we're still waiting to receive information on from the finance committee that was suggested. And I guess what I'm concerned about is that I don't want to have too many hurdles for any project that is taking place. I don't want kind of a bureaucracy to get built up, but I do think that the committee did a lot of work. Appendix A does have the kind of proper content for a memorandum of understanding, and it's pretty well laid out. And whether they are the proper group to execute that or to ensure that that's kind of complied with, or
I think the town manager should be empowered, I don't know what the right word is, to be in touch with the chair of the P3 committee if he thinks that would be helpful and constructive. You know,
The committee has been disbanded.
Yeah,
I think,
disbanded, so they
so there
can't,
is no.
it's calling,
but we
So
don't,
we could,
do we need to reconstitute it in order to suggest that?
so I could be in touch with the former members and,
Sure.
and ask if they want.
Maybe
That
through
would
the
be
chair
great.
or something.
Yeah.
I think I want to wait until Chris has gotten into this enough to know where he's going to need some assistance or isn't going to need it. I know the issue that's still, supportive as I am of this, still is bothersome to me, is the list of public-private partnerships. When I went through it again over the weekend to try to get ready for tonight's meeting, for the life of me, I couldn't remember why some of these organizations that were on the list were there. So I'd like us to, you know,
Update that.
back through that. And I think, you know, even if there are some on there, as you indicated, Chris, that are dormant, I mean, to get started with this, we ought to pick off, you know, the big and important ones that are complicated enough and have challenges for us, and we want to make sure we got it correct. I'd rather have the top, you know, the top 15 to be squared away and reviewed and make sure they're in compliance with what the committee recommended, than, you know, worry about something that's, you know, not doing anything and could be put off, so.
we do have 3 members of the previous committee who are here. I don't know, as a group or individually, you'd like to address the board on this?
Yeah, I would.
Eugene is come, Eugene's coming up, she's come any number of times to kind of tell us, you know.
get on it.
So, I mean, I don't, you know, it's a town manager, I'm not, you speak for yourself, but the town manager needs some help. I would just suggest you be in contact with the former chair and assuming the former chair is willing.
I would be willing to help. I will say that there are former members who likely are not interested. There are some who probably would be interested, but I think that anyone who is interested would be looking for some clarity around what is it that's being asked, so that people have a sense of whether they're able to deliver on that. And you know, in a sense of, is that you're talking about it being sort of a pop-up committee here and there, that feels a little loose to me. Like, is it or isn't it? Or is it a short-term committee to get things rolling and then it gets turned over to the city? So I think there are some questions that people will have in order to be able to say, yeah, I'll sign on for that again. The committee did do a significant amount of work to get things where they got to, and I think for most of the members, if not all the members, that we've been a little disappointed that it's taken a while, and you know, so here we are now, a year later or a year and a half later, depending on when you time the clock starting. So I'd say, you know, certainly if you want to be in touch with me, Chris, I'm happy to be in touch with the members or former members and see who might be interested. But we would like certainly some clarity about what it is you or the select board would be looking to us to be able to do.
The pop-up is pretty easy to understand. I think Chris gave a good example of it. The Rotary Club is not a public-private partnership.
No.
But every once in a while, I think the Concord Bell, right? And all of a sudden we have one.
Right.
So that's what he meant by pop-up. They're circumstantially public-private partnerships, not all the time. So, you know, contrast that with the library, which is a formal public. So I think we'd want to get those things squared away and work on those big ones. And then as we sort of learn how to do this, and then we can unfold the other.
Yeah, and I realized that list that was part of our report was pretty extensive because we tried to be as thorough as we possibly can. And it's possible that there might even still be a couple out there that we didn't uncover.
I think there probably are, and are likely, in my view, there are some on that list that I don't know why they're there. So,
Well, for all of those entities, we did have a reason why we put them on the list.
I said I couldn't remember.
Right,
Not that you
yeah.
didn't have to- not that you didn't have a good
Right.
reason.
Well, I also know that the committee felt that jurisdiction did not go so far as the school committee or school
Correct.
building. And there was kind of thinking that perhaps there could be, the school itself could take on the similar type of a process and perhaps use the P3 committee. And it strikes me that from what I understand, one of the likely scenarios in the future is that there's going to be a middle school that's construction, which has implications for the P3. So I don't know what the status of that, whether, we fortunately, one of our members was able to infiltrate the school committee and is here, so I'm sure we'll have a voice there. But I think one of the things that we kind of did not see, as the committee did not see, is that these type of entities, the P3s, come and go, and they kind of, at some point, they take a great deal of time and input and getting the memorandum of understanding. At other times, there may be quite a lull. And so the question is, sort of what's the best process to have so that when something comes up, we can address it in the fashion the P3 was recommending. But you don't want to have a committee that sort of doesn't meet for 2 years.
True.
I see we have another committee member who has that.
Before Doris speaks up, so you believe that within 4 to 6 weeks, you could have something,
An update,
an update?
what's required on the annual report to update things on what are the currently active P3s. I wouldn't post up there. We have the original report, which includes a comprehensive list, and I would only post the things that are active right now. So I see that the Harrington House tenant is on here. We will have a new tenant. I don't think that's a P3. It certainly isn't one that I would report on in great detail because we have a tenancy.
Within the same time period, would you be able to come back to the board with specific concerns, issues, or questions that are not resolved? So that we would then be able to sort of take up the idea of, well, do you just call Gene, or do we reconstitute, get some order of magnitude of what we're dealing with, and know whether it's just kind of having a citizen help out, or whether it's sufficiently big that we ought to get a small group back together and put them to work within that
I
same
would be
time
able to answer
period.
that, yes.
Dora, you had.
Yeah, my only thing is to say that I don't view what we were recommending as just some sort of bookkeeping thing, and let's get a website up, and oh, fine, it's just one more thing. And one that's offered with the visitor center now, I think that's probably no longer since it's in-house. That's one, that's public information, but I think one of the motivating forces, as I read it in the Town Governance Study Committee, was to have this public, to get public information when something is being contemplated as a partnership is either going to be started or expanded, that there be public notice for that, rather than having it sort of happen and, oh, by the way, we had some meetings on this. We feel, I think I'm speaking for the committee, that we wanted to have more daylight on what was going on with public-private partnerships. Some of them are innocuous, and some of them, as we say, are run by the wayside, and I think Mike is perfectly correct. But there are some major ones that there needs to be, it's not just, oh, we're going to keep a record of what you've done, but we want to have public involvement. When I'm thinking I'm a part of this partnership, I'm a private part, and I have envisions us doing something, to have that there is sufficient public notice. And so I'm concerned about having a committee be doing this. If a committee were just going to be sort of, just clerical, that would be one thing. But I think there's more to this, and that's the part I would hate to have forgotten. And that's the part that I would hope that you as a board would make a decision. Do you want that public, that kind of thing, information? Or is that something that's just, you're saying, no, let's just not bother with that? I think until that's clarified, we can make all the lists we want.
Well, I
check them
think
off.
we do, Dory, and I think, if I go back to, I think it was before the committee was constituted, although it could have been at the same time. We had the library, Emerson Umbrella, and the Concord Museum all come here to tell us what their plans were and how they were going to go about their business. And I think for Emerson Umbrella, we invited them back a second time around. That was, I think, exactly what you were talking about.
Yes.
Whether it was enough,
Well, I think maybe.
but I think that was exactly
That is.
from the Town Governance Study Committee,
Yes,
trying to get to the public earlier in these processes.
Bingo.
Because
That's
people
exactly.
were feeling like, what?
that's right, that's exactly right.
And
That's,
it's already started to be built, and that's.
and I think the playing fields were one of the motivating forces behind the town government.
Yes.
Springfield and Junction Village was also a factor.
Well, that came late in the game, I think.
Yeah,
That came
But-
later.
but
No,
I
I
think
think the
you're right.
playing fields, and of course, the reality is that was at the high school, so this would have not had
That's
any.
right, but the middle school
jurisdiction.
will probably have the same thing, and so that would be, when the middle school, I mean, we're talking about this, we're already starting to pay our taxes on it now in advance, but that's a good idea. But if that happens, that's under the town, that's K-8. And that might be a really good one as an opening sort of thing, that we, not just the bookkeeping, oh, well, there's the XYZ middle school playing fields,
Well,
public-private
again, I'm
partnership.
sorry, I know I'm being a pain here, but I don't see building the middle school as a public-private partnership.
No, I'm
Not
talking
fields.
about the playing fields,
playing
the
fields that we're building.
private money for playing fields.
If
If,
If. there
well,
is-
maybe it won't, wouldn't that be?
Well, that's the point. I don't want us to.
No, let's not, forget I said this. I don't want to have something boring and have me blamed
We
for it.
haven't even decided, middle school.
No, I think also the committee sort of recommended one way to help this happen, which is the at least annual public meeting where these P3s are reviewed and status is shared with the public. And that was something that the committee recommended, that was something that you all put into your plans for P3. So that's a one way, not the only way, but that's one way that can happen. If something comes up in between, then there needs to be another mechanism to get that information out.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I went too far.
I mean, I get why it could be.
Yeah.
You know, it could turn out to be a public-private partnership. I just don't want to get ahead of the game.
Linda, did you have a question?
I was just gonna comment that having read all the material, myself, I think I'd like to give the town manager a chance to work with it, because sometimes when you're working, you develop a framework as you go through these, and he's in a good position to do that, so.
Okay.
That's my comment.
Okay, so Chris,
Thank
we'll
you.
talk in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is finalizing the special town meeting warrants, which has been provided.
So, yeah, we had a meeting with the chair, the town moderator, Carmen came back for that specific purpose, town council, the finance director, to review the draft warrant that the board approved earlier. And we did make some significant changes, so I thought it would be beneficial to have the board review. I think on the eminent domain taking, the explanatory box was not self-explanatory. The moderator made that very clear. Particularly, it wasn't clear to her that what was happening was we had one appropriation, we paid less than that amount for the land, and now we're paying more than that amount, and we're requesting additional funds. So I think that the box there is more clear than the document that you saw earlier. We've added maps. I don't think you saw those, the maps in the earlier version. I'm not sure. It was suggested that the map show because we're on Article 2 concerning the easement on the W.R. Graceland, that the easement is shown, a little hard to read there, but it's dark, but it connects to the Acton land, and it was suggested that we show the Acton land so that the voters could see exactly what's happening connecting Knox Trail with the Acton land. So that was an improvement. Let me see. We made significant changes at the request of the White Pond Associates on Article 4, particularly that they reconfigured. The planning board recently approved an A&R, approval not required, subdivision plan of the 18.1 acres, and they reconfigured the lots so that the references references to the assessor's parcels have been deleted, and the references to the street addresses have been deleted. And what remains is the parcel lots A1, B2, C, and also X. We had left off X, which is the small triangular shaped lot down by the water's edge. That's parcel X, which was left off the warrant. So fortunately that was caught. And there's added a little bit more detail on the White Pond relative to the White Pond gift. Let me see, we contemplated not having Article 5, but we received word late today that it does look like it will be necessary to include Article 5 in the warrant, which is an appropriation of funds to manage the beach. Let me see if there's anything else. It was requested by the moderator, I think, for clarification purposes for both the two regional high school articles, that in the box it be clear, the last sentence, that the debt issued under this article has not been excluded under the provision of Proposition 2.5. So the high school construction project was there was a debt exclusion. There's no debt exclusion vote
For both of these.
for both of these, and none has been proposed. Let me see, is anything further, the Black Birch, that's Article 12, skipping ahead, we had substantial conversation on Article 12, which is the Black Birch 2 site development. So the title has changed to become a little bit, doesn't refer to any affordable units or what have you. And I think the text of the document is on the article has also changed, and the explanatory box has been expanded to provide more explanation. So those are the major changes that have been discussed and are now proposed since you last saw the warrant.
Can I just ask one question? It's really educational for me, I'm sure. On the Black Birch, Article 12, it refers to conditions established by the Board of Appeals and approved by the Select Board, and I was wondering why.
So that project was approved, a special permit granted by the Board of Appeals under a 40B process, I believe. This is a special process unique to that zoning district. But the Board of Appeals was the permit granting authority. And now the proposal is to change that decision of the Board of Appeals and allow either the units or financial compensation. And so that has to be approved. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Any other questions or?
So you're ready for a motion?
Yes. I would respectfully request the board vote to approve the October 1st special town meeting warrant with 13 articles substantially as submitted. Again, leaving the chair, the town council and town manager a flexibility to make minor changes, and it's headed to the printer tomorrow at noon.
So moved. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're ready for the PEG Access television update. And, we have a document there.
So Kate Hodges, the assistant town manager, prepared a memo for the board. So no longer looking backward relative to CCTV, but looking forward to Minuteman Media Network. MMN will be the new name of the in-house operation. And what she has indicated, she has spoken with, I think, all three of the remaining CCTV staff and discussed continuing their employment. I think job offers have been made to 2 employees that were interested, and the third is thinking it over, mulling it over, I believe. They've all agreed to cooperate with the town in transitioning during this last month of CCTV's contract. And you can see job descriptions, so these employees will conform to our standard, process pay and classification system. Not during the interim, during the transition, but eventually we're moving in the direction of having those positions, including our classification system, having job descriptions, that sort of thing.
So for the interim period here, that is continue to be paid as they are currently being paid.
They would be town employees, so it will change a little. It will change a little bit. They would not have as temporary town employees. They don't have paid time off, so their hourly rate will be increased to reflect the fact that when they take a day off, they won't be paid for it, but they will have benefits that other town employees are entitled to.
And will they be given a job classification?
Yes, we're working on that. That will take some time.
End.
Yes. Yeah. Our intent would be to continue their employment after this transition
And it
period.
could be the case that their salaries could change depending upon the classification.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's the purview of the Personnel Committee?
The personnel board.
That's Personnel Board.
I know the storage and archives was raised, and that was an issue that we wanted to make sure was clarified.
So we do have that. The investment was made just over in July. I think it was. They had run out of storage, so each meeting that was being recorded was, would have not been available. So we bought additional storage capacity, and the town is now managing the archiving of those programs. There was a request to the Library Corporation to consider archiving the P programming, the public program that does not relate to education or governmental meetings. And I think the Library Corporation is thinking that over, whether they would be willing and interested in archiving the publicly produced programs. My preference, I think, would be to keep it all together, so there's one spot where people can go through for whatever program they want, but that'll be something that the advisory committee can have an opinion on.
You mean electronically accessed?
That's right. Yeah, and I don't think everything will be available for live stream. So for example, if there's a town meeting in 2002, somebody's interested in reviewing the discussion on a particular article, it won't be, I don't think it'll be available for live streaming at all times. They may have to make a request to retrieve that, and it will be made available to them, because otherwise you'd be taking up a lot of space having every meeting that was ever recorded available for streaming. So that we'll probably be...
We're physically storing all of this stuff ourselves on our own servers?
I believe it's in the cloud.
Yeah, it is.
Or is it's ours?
So we've acquired the storage space, but they're not I don't think they're physically.
Physically, it's our storage
Yes,
space
that's
as opposed to a service that's storing it for us.
Correct.
Anybody else have any questions about this? Wanted to make sure that we kind of followed up, because I know there was able concern town taking over, and the League of Women Voters raised, I think by properly, the issue of the archiving and the storage of information. So thank you, and thank Kate for the very thorough, and I see you're able to even work in on the logo, the Old North Bridge. We're all set. And finalizing the town manager job description, that's been provided. I thought it was very thorough. I don't know if people have any comments or questions. That'll be that will be obviously useful for the town manager search committee. And
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, did you want to vote to approve that?
I think if we're supposed to, we should, yes.
I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Move to approve the job description of the town manager draft as of August 10th, 2018.
Second.
Any comments? So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we have the town manager goal and the evaluation. And that was provided, and I sent out quite late this afternoon the proposed evaluation. So I don't know if people got that or.
I did. I had a chance to review it. I made some editorials, so nothing substantive to it, but some editorial ones. So I'd be happy to approve it, subject to your ability to make minor.
But you didn't get a chance to look at it.
I didn't get a chance to.
Okay. Then I think it may be something we can fairly quickly handle at the next meeting.
Great.
Are there highlights that we should discuss that was in this? What did you, oh, I see.
You know, what's a highlight to you might not be.
That's true.
I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I think perhaps the best way, rather than trying to go through it, we can put it off, as I don't think it's going to affect anything by a delay of a couple weeks. And I thought the goals, again, we can incorporate both of them.
I also sent those out late in the day today. They were intended to mirror the board's goals, but provide some more specificity on specific action.
So what I didn't notice in the goals, how did I see the goals, but I didn't see, I'm sorry. Was it yours? Must have come in just before I left. What I don't see in here that maybe ought to be is some mention of the commitment to peace.
That
Is it in here? And it sounds like something you're going to work on, and that we have a somewhat urgency by some that we do that. It may be here, but I
No,
missed it.
Amanda accidentally unintentionally misplaced because it was under your group, the first group of effective governance, I think. And I did have it in my, on my list, so fair enough.
Okay.
I'll add it there.
Ready for public comments? And we've driven most of the public away, it looks. I don't see any public comments, so we're ready to move to the committee liaison reports. Linda, would you like to begin?
Sure. I attended the 229 Main Street committee. There is a new EPA representative that's been assigned, Chris Smith, and he also will be handling the Grace property. They're continuing to pump and clean the water, and they're seeing some results from that. The former EPA representative, her name was Elaine, I don't remember her last name. Saley, thank you. Suggested that the consent decree negotiations for the statewide remediation are coming to a close, and she suggested there be a meeting when that happens, and they're expecting sometime early fall. That's the latest. You know how these dates go, but that was the information there. So consequently, the committee is concerned about one, being able to have a seat at the table as the design elements get rolled out, and that there would be a possibility of some infrastructure being taken care of by the design, such as roads and different things, before we might proceed and take over with eminent domain. So there's some benefit to us being at the table fairly early in the process. So I think the point of contact and what's going to happen this fall may necessitate us then getting on board and moving. The other committee I attended was the Concord Housing Development Corporation. They had a full agenda. They talked about the community forum for the Juro land, and they have awarded 3 small grants for home improvements for people who apply for that assistance. And they were also had some questions about the status of the committee for the open space task force related to Junction Village.
Do we have a list of names?
Remind me where we are.
It was agreed there would be a committee. Did we have
The
sufficient?
Junction Village Open Space Task Force, there's one person that's been appointed to that.
Okay.
So,
Have green cards for anybody else?
no.
So this is a good time to ask the public if they're interested.
Yeah, it's a short-term committee. I think the intent was, 4 to 6 months or something like that, just long enough to come up with a plan for the open space at Junction Village. I think it was suggested that some representatives of different committees, be appointed, so it may be that some existing committee folks could serve to help
We
plan.
can get on that so we don't fall behind on it.
Mhm.
It would make sense to have somebody from the NRC as a representative.
Right, exactly.
Certainly Delia, I'm sure will be involved in it. Somebody from housing, I don't know.
Somebody from Trails Committee?
So there,
Sure.
Chris's recollection is correct. I think there were specified.
Representatives.
So it's a representative, we should
And
be.
then only one citizen at large volunteered, so we need 1 or 2 more
So
citizens.
we need the committee reps.
I think did we approve the committee charge, and what the duties were going to be, so.
Looking at that.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
the
that's-
charge. There are definitely committee reps that were specified in it. I believe
I'm
there's-
supposed to be the liaison to that, as I think I remember. Can I be charged with the responsibility of contacting the committee chairs who are supposed to
Sure.
be volunteering somebody so you can?
Yeah, I'll get you the
And
charge
we'll
and
be
everything.
having the table at the ag,
We
well,
will be.
that might be a time to see if we can
Yeah.
generate some excitement.
That's it.
I attended the Pollinator Health Advisory Committee. They continuing to make progress on their mission, and they're going to also have a table at Ag Day. And be handing out some material which I volunteered to print for them, so I hope it's okay. About the kinds of plants people should have in their yards and stuff, and something about that. So I think we pretty good. We are going to have a table there as well. Andrew secured a tent for us, right?
Yep, we got a
Table.
tent on the table, and I will have facilities pick it up the Friday before the event. Bring it here to the townhouse, so it's good to go. We can just bring it right across the
So we
street.
can just schlep it over there.
Yeah, 'cause I think last year the tent barely fit into someone's car, and it was kind of an ordeal. So we'll have the van bring it over here, ready to go with the table. You might want to bring some chairs, I guess, but we'll have a board, sandwich board, like we did last year, and also I'm working with Heather Butler to get a list that you can hand out to people for vacancies where we need it.
Get some green cards.
Yep, and you know, with the Junction Village Open Space Task Force and other committees, that there might be a loose one missing person that we could add to it too. So
Right, so in addition to pollinator, it's not a committee, but I met with the town clerk and the town information officer to make progress on this fall's educational program that we're going to do. And we're going to have two, one in October. I'll provide the details for the next one. I think it's October 20th. And that's going to be sort of three parts from 10 to 12 here in the townhouse. It's going to be Carrie is going to do a review of the updates of the open meeting and public records law. The town moderator, Carmen, is going to provide an overview summary of last year's educational program, sort of on the road to town meeting. But the focus of what we did last year was both for committee people and for citizens who might be interested. This one in October is just for committees to help them understand what their responsibilities and duties are. And then third, a section that Tom is going to chair, which is sort of meeting management. So that, we'll get that done. And then the one in November is going to be sort of helping petitioners who are interested in petitions, how they prepare to get their done. We don't have we don't have the folks who are going to exactly do that. That's what we're about.
I attended the joint school committee meeting this morning. They voted to approve the warrant articles for the Carlisle special town meeting. And then they also had a lively discussion. There's been a candidate who wishes to hold a rally at the high school. And so the question was kind of policy regarding that. The school would get rent, and the candidate would pay for extra police and whatever detail. It would be on September 8th, which is the same day that the Ag Day. So the police will be perhaps...
they've got their
Open house, yeah.
Open house.
Yeah. So there's some details to work out, but they basically focused on would it have any effect on the education. The feeling was no. Public safety they felt could be provided, and the third was the issue of does it set an improper precedent, or they want to be cautious that what standards there would be. But I think they had a lively discussion, and they'll, I think, be voting at their next meeting as to whether to go ahead and approve that.
Is this a candidate for public office?
Yes,
After the primary?
yes. It's one where there may
May
be
not be
other
contest.
parties, exactly.
I'm slow then.
And there was a discussion that any fundraising or whatever is illegal, so there would not be any of that, but the proposed candidate who is seeking to do the rental is well aware of the legal obligations. So it was, it was an interesting discussion.
So I attended the CSEC meeting and wanted to at least mention two things. One is on September 15th, there is an EV event, electric vehicle event that will be held at Walden Pond at underneath the canopy, the solar canopy, where there are also electric chargers. This is an opportunity for people to come look at the assortment of electric vehicles. They can go test drive them. There'll be a number of representatives from car dealers who will be showing off their EVs. And you'll be able to talk to other folks who own an EV about what it's like to charge in Concord, what does it take to put a charging station in at your home, and you have the opportunity to get to test drive and see what it's like on the inside of an electric vehicle. And the town is now a new owner of an electric vehicle.
Leaf?
Yeah, we have a Nissan Leaf, it's 100% electric charging. There'll be a charging station put in
Yes.
here
Yes, at the townhouse.
at the townhouse. And the car is well branded, it has a sustainability logo, and it says it's a zero emissions vehicle.
I think, I don't know if it was CSEC that sponsored it. A year ago or 2 years ago, when we got the electric bus,
Yeah.
but they had an event over at Walden with the bus, and then there were all kinds of everybody who owned an electric car brought it.
Yep.
A bunch of them brought electric cars for folks to look at.
So this is a remake. This is
Yeah.
Brian Folds, who
Yeah.
brought the first
Yeah.
one, is doing it again. He's enlisted at CSEC to be his support team. Takes a lot of people to pull off an event, as we know from doing the swap days.
Mhm.
The other thing is that a lot of progress was made during this special offering of the Heat Smart program, which was trying to encourage people to move off of fossil fuels and to install a heat pump system. And I think they met their goal on installations, and even, they had two different kinds, ground source and air source. The ground source meant its goal, air source fell a little short. They're gonna keep on plugging to see if they can continue getting people to sign on to installing air source heat pumps. And may change the incentive program a little bit, because I learned from the program that the amount of the incentive is less important than actually selling the concept. And so people who seem to be willing to put them in, and with or without an incentive, so they may look at reducing the amount of the incentive and allow that money to be put back into CMLP's coffers to spend on helping to defray the costs for folks who are income eligible on the small rate increase to support green fuels. That's my big report.
Now move to miscellaneous correspondence. I believe we got something regarding APA award Vision Concord plan, asking that we willing to provide a letter of support for a award of Daniel Vernon Award for Comprehensive Plan. And seemed to me to be a good idea, but I don't know what other people thought.
So when in general, I think it's a good idea, but when I read through the requirements and sort of, also I think talking about the criteria in a general way, indirect way, they talked about the benefit to the citizens. And I was wondering if we're premature applying for it now as opposed to next year. That was my main.
So much of what it talks about is the process, right? Is a public engagement process that was gone through, and how you set priorities and how you look across sectors and break down some of those silos in the thinking. And I think that maybe that's what they're more looking at, is the engagement side, not the outcome, which obviously this becomes a guide, the Vision Concord becomes a guidance document for us over a 10-year time frame. That I think when I looked through this, it looked like it was about more geared towards how we came to develop the plan that got approved.
Okay.
And I think it's a good idea, but I do have a process issue. And the process issue is if we're going to vote on something, I think we're going to, then I think that it ought to be listed as an agenda item.
Oh.
Rather than deal.
How is the correspondence?
As correspondence. Because somebody could, I doubt, I can't imagine for this issue, that somebody would object to it, but they wouldn't see it on the agenda. So in the future, I would just suggest that anytime we're going to have a vote that we not deal with it.
I think probably the problem is this came in
Oh, yeah,
this afternoon,
Just came in at the
fairly
last
late,
minute,
so.
after the
we
agenda
wouldn't
had
have been
already
able
been
to-
distributed.
Yeah, but in principle, I think you're entirely correct. Should we though, vote to, authorize,
Yes.
a letter on my signature to, go out? I guess it does require a $95 fee. So, well, that comes with it as well.
Chair can do that too.
I don't know if the clerk's job.
I moved to authorize the chair to submit a letter of support for the Daniel Burnham Award for a comprehensive plan on behalf of the select board.
Second that?
Any further conversation regarding it? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Now we have committee nomination.
We do. Now to describe the right colored paper. Let's see, committee nominations. Move to nominate Lucy Rossborough of 56 Elm Street to the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee, Ruth Lauer of 100 Keyes Road, number 323, to the PEG Access Advisory Committee.
Second.
Okay,
We don't need a second.
no, we need that, and it looks like we don't have any appointments, committee appointments, but we do have appointing election officials. There is a August 27th, 2018 update number 2. We would make up a motion to
Yep, okay, move to appoint election officials as listed on the town clerk's memo dated August 27th, 2018. There are a number of officers who are named here. Should I read the names or not?
We don't need to do that.
Second.
And I won't.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And I guess now we would be adjourning to executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining issues.
I move that we adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining with the police union and not to reconvene in open session. The executive session is needed to protect strategy discussions affecting litigation on the stated matter.
This requires a roll call. Linda?
Aye.
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 Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.